Hello everybody and welcome to the second episode of Tide Talk. Man, I'm really excited. I know there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm here with my good buddy Roy Dixon. Roy and I have known each other for a long time. He's an Alabama mind. But I got to say, Roy, if I remember correctly, one of the last times you and I were really together with respect to Alabama football, 2010 National Championship trip in this book, actually, on our way to Pasadena, California.
You know what? I recall that. I think I remember it. Seems like it was just yesterday.
That's right.
I know all the time y'all talk about, hey, let's go on another one, but I don't know how we could top that one.
Yeah, I don't know that there would be another. Well, heck, and we're in the national championship game all the time, but I don't know that. I just don't think that can be topped. The trip out there, the Fine Bomb show, Baumhauer sending us tickets. Man, what a great experience. Well, let's get right into the show. Listen, last week we talked a lot about just the stuff leading up to the opening game, the off-season talk about Tua versus Jalen, the quarterback controversy. I think we got our answer.
Well, I don't know that I have mine. I'm kind of mad that Mac Jones ain't playing yet. No, seriously. I think it's what we all knew. I think that Tua won the team over a long time ago, Shawn, and I feel like that, you know, obviously they made the decision in the championship game, and he went through spring hurt a little bit, and I think, you know what, I think he gives us more offensive firepower, and I think you saw that on Saturday night. That's not taken away from Jalen.
Right, right.
I think Jalen has a skill set like a bunch of quarterbacks that don't possess, but you know what, Tua's ability to read defenses pretty quick just gives us an added weapon.
Well, let's talk about that for a second because, man, I don't know about you, but when they put Jalen in the game, I mean, I was pulling for the Joker. I mean, at the end of the day, 26-2 is pretty good in SEC football. You know, that's pretty good. 2 national championships. But I agree, Roy. Man, love the guy, love his attitude, love his leadership ability, love the things that he can do. He just can't do what Tua can do.
Man, I think that's what Coach Saban and DeBall probably battled with so much last year. You know, what's your reasoning for sitting Jalen, who's had so much success? He's a kid that honors your program. He's bought into the process. He does everything that he needs to do, and you're ripping out wins. And you know what? It's hard to sit a child like that who does everything that you ask him to do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he just doesn't possess the potential as a passer that Tua does.
Well, and with offenses today, I mean, you know, we were just talking about it before the show. You know, for years as an Alabama fan, I wanted to see some points on the board. I mean, I remember winning games 13-6, 13-7, 10-6. And we were able to do that because we had a dominant defense. Our offense wasn't as stellar. Now, not to say that our defense isn't good. We'll talk about that later in the show, but man, we got a chance to put a lot of points on the board.
I think now, you know what, you'll see us electing to take the ball first and putting
we did Saturday night.
And putting the pressure on people. You know what? Here again, you have those skillful young receivers, Shawn, and you know what? His ability to put points on the board and put points on the board quick.
Yeah.
You know, to me, that may help a young defense, okay? Because it limits what the offense can do trying to catch up.
Well, let's talk about, here's another thing, a good discussion point. You're a coach. I mean, you coach football. We talked about who was going to win the team. In your mind, what does that actually mean? I mean, even in your world, but what does that actually mean by, you know, we think it's going to be the person that wins the team?
Man, I think we get caught up in thinking winning the team as far as person of good character or whatever, but Jalen possessed those things. I think winning the team in this context meant what quarterback is going to provide the stability to allow other players to be in their element. For example, the receiver, you hear all the rumblings about if Tua wouldn't have played, you had 3 or 4 of those guys leaving. But I feel like by winning the team over, that means, you know, Judy, Devontae Smith, Ruggs, those guys can do what they need to be players. They're just not running routes and turn around and seeing somebody's tuck the ball and took off running.
I heard a comment this weekend. I don't remember who it was, but I heard a comment that said if Tua was the quarterback last year, Calvin Ridley becomes a higher draft pick. What's your thoughts on that?
You know what? I believe that's a possibility because here again, I feel like he reads defenses better and he spreads the ball around more. But, you know, Calvin Ridley is a good player. He was drafted in the first round. You know what? It's I think that, you know, we possibly could have showcased him more. But, hey, on the flip side, think about back in the day if we would have had Tua throwing to Julio Jones.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you know, again, that whole conversation, you know, that's that what if thing. Here's what I do know, and we've agreed. Tua, and there's so many times in that game Saturday night. I mean, his ability to go through his progression, and not just go through his progression, but go through it fairly quickly. You know, you made the comment, he reads defenses and he does it fairly quickly. To go through his progression and to see who needs to get the ball is with our receivers, with our offensive line, just, man, makes our offense very, very difficult to stop.
You know, and I think, and I'm not saying, I believe both kids probably study and put more time than the normal quarterback in, but I think Tua probably grasp it a little better. And therefore, I think before the snap ever happens, I think Tua probably sees the play developing before it ever develops. Yeah. So therefore, that allows his reads to be a lot quicker. You know, obviously, you know, his first touchdown pass, everybody's like, wow, you know, he just threw it up. But unfortunately, Jalen, if Jalen's in that situation, when he reverses out, he's running. You know, he don't stay in there a little bit and know to give our receiver a chance or whatever. And listen, Jalen possesses a skill set that we'll be able to use at some point in a very important part of this season. And I think we need Jalen to win football games. But unfortunately, Tua is the quarterback we've all been waiting for as Alabama fans.
Well, that's the answer that we've been looking for. I mean, that's the thing that we talked about the whole offseason. I mean, last show we talked about who was going to get the first snap, who was that guy, who's it going to be, what's Saban going to do. You know, Saban come out this week and said, you know, Tua is the guy that's going to start. He's going to be our guy. Jalen's going to play a role. He's going to play a role. It's just going to be a backup role.
That's right.
And, you know, man, who better to have as a backup than a guy that's 26-2 and has been through some difficult situations. Been through some difficult situations.
Man, you know, we got away from a little while ago is, you know, you mentioned, you know, once Jalen came in, even you as an Alabama fan, me as an Alabama fan rooting for him, the game slowed down.
Yeah.
The game slowed down. It came to a little bit of a stall or whatever. You know, as an Alabama fan, I'm not one to miss many plays at all, but so far in a half of football and the amount that Tua played the other day, you feel like if you blink, you're going to miss something that's going to be pretty good.
Yeah. I think that I think it's going to play a huge factor in the rest of the season because I believe that we will utilize both. I believe that we will utilize Jalen. And I don't want to spend the whole show talking about that, but it is important to say because it was such a big ordeal, it was such a big conversation in the offseason. I'm going to wrap it up by saying I know that Jalen's going to be utilized. It'll be interesting to see, though, from a guy that's used to starting, from a guy that's used to – he's a competitor, and that's what you want, how he handles that backup role, how he handles that, you know, that second guy, you know, mentality.
You know, one thing that we need to keep in mind is I think it's very important that we keep him highly involved. You know, the first touchdown throw, we throw it, Judy comes back, catches it, and next thing you know, they look over, you got two on the ground, and we all hold our breath.
I thought the same thing.
So the same thing is Jalen's got to get his reps. You have to build his confidence, and, you know, and you hope. You know, people forget, yes, Jalen played in 28 football games, 29 now, but he was still a young kid.
Yeah.
He was one of those guys that graduated early, enrolled early. You know, the thing is, he could redshirt and all that stuff now, sit out a year, and he would be age appropriate. So you kind of hope that he continues to mature mentally to go along with the physical ability that he possesses.
Well, we're going to take a break here in just a second. We talked a lot about the offense. There's some more to talk about. Man, the receivers. But we're going to take a break on behalf of Bob English with State Farm. And stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back with some more Tide Talk.
Savings this big come with their own theme music. State Farm agent Bob English in Phoenix City can help you get all the discounts you deserve with a free discount double check. After all, real savings should fold, not jingle. Get to a better state. Call Bob today.
All right, welcome back, Tide fans. We've talked a lot about the quarterback situation, and we think we got that nailed down. But let's add to that, Roy, with respect to the offense. The receivers that we have. I don't know that with respect to X through Z, I don't know that and for those of you that don't know, the X is the wide receiver on one side and the Z. But for an entire unit of receivers, I don't know that we've had this good of a unit on the field at the same time in years.
Man, I'll tell you, we knew last year we had a good group of freshman core receivers coming in. We knew they were exciting. We talked about the quarterback play in the earlier segment, and maybe we're able to utilize the receivers a little bit more. But, man, you're talking about speed, do a good job running routes and getting open. It's fun. For years and years and years, it seemed like every time we threw a football to a receiver, like a sniper has shot them or something.
Right.
You know what I mean? They just fall down. But getting the ball in these kids' hands and see what they can make happen after the catch is pretty fun to watch.
Talking about speed, I was reading the article with respect to Waddle, and I really didn't. I mean, it's tough to see on TV. I mean, when you're on TV, it's a little different. I mean, you obviously recognize these guys are fast. They're playing Division I college football. They're playing for the University of Alabama. He's starting as a freshman. That joker's fast.
Man, there's no doubt about it. You know, obviously reading Tighter and Cider and things like that, you know, Rodney Orr, the owner of Tighter and Cider last year, the one receiver that he kept talking about was, you know, Jalen Waddle. And then to see, usually kids kind of grow into a position or whatever, but for the opening punt, for him to be put back there and you know, throwing the ball and getting him active in the offense, you know, obviously a strong physical kid breaking tackles. I don't know if you noticed, Shawn, on the deep ball, he catches the back of the football.
They talked about that a lot.
But you know what? He's going to be very strong and quick and elusive. You know, I've told my son Brody for 4 or 5 months now, hey, if you want to watch video, watch Jalen Waddle. And I feel like he's going to be the real deal to complement, you know, Ruggs and Smith. You know, talking about Smith, you know, in the spring, we were looking at him as a DB, moving over to DB.
Right.
And next thing you know,
even after catching a big catch to win
now
national
4 or 5
championship.
catches in, and there's some other guys. Terrell Shavers from Texas. You know, he's a 6'6" target. So it's going to be fun to watch. And here again, I feel like we have a quarterback that can distribute the ball to them, and that'll be fun to watch.
Well, the other thing that I like, we talked about this a little bit before the show. Man, when do you remember the last time that we had a guy, special teams, punt return, or what have you, that was as dynamic as Waddle? I mean, this guy appears to be a threat to break anything that he returns.
Man, I think he's going to remind you a lot of David Palmer.
Yeah.
You know, another name we didn't mention a while ago before getting hurt, Tyrone Prothro.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have that kind of effect on the game.
It seems that way. I mean, just from watching, and it's tough to say, you know, game one, everybody's excited, but man, you know, game one against a pretty decent opponent. I mean, Louisville's, you know, they returned some players, and they're a pretty good football. Bobby Petrino, fantastic coach. But yeah, it's going to be exciting to see. And we hadn't even gotten to the running backs. I mean, listen, I'm a Damian Harris fan. I mean, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. And how many touches? Does he get 10 touches maybe?
Yeah, I don't even think he got 10 the
other
night.
I mean, if the Joker gets 20 touches a game, he's a Heisman candidate. He's a Heisman candidate.
You know, Damian Harris is a professional playing college football.
Yeah.
You know, everything that he's done, the way he's went about his business for going on 4 years now, you know, he does everything right, everything that Coach Saban asks in the program. Man, it's going to be fun to watch that group of running backs. You're talking about Najee, who at one time we really weren't even expecting to play this week due to a foot injury. You know, Damian Harris. Then you have Joshua Jacobs that you throw out there, who is as healthy as ever. And I don't know if you really understand his back. He was a kid that wasn't highly recruited. Next thing you know, we get in on him late, and he's had a pretty big, important role for us.
Those are the guys that I like. Those are the stories that you want.
It's tough not to root for.
Yeah, those are the stories that you want to hear, and And man, not to mention the local boy, the Robinson kid is, I mean, the few times that Herbstreit made a comment actually on ESPN, he was like, do you think that they're going to take a play off? I mean, they don't get many touches as it is, so they're trying to score every single time they touch it. And the scary thing is they have the capability.
That's exactly right. You're talking about, you're giving your fourth-string running back carries, who would be a first string for a bunch of people, you know, and those second team and third team offensive linemen they're still trying to go through their assignments and trying to block to score touchdowns. And you know what, it's fun to watch, and it's fun to be a part of this program. We're rooting for this program to see the depth that we have and to continually grow.
Well, depth leads me right into the next conversation. Let's talk about the defense a little bit. There was some concern with depth, especially at linebacker. You know, we had some guys get injured, some key guys. I mean, Terrell Lewis, absolute stud. I mean, he's hurt again. But I was a little concerned early in the game. It didn't seem like we were getting a lot of pressure. You know, I'm a guy that has a little bit of knowledge. I mean, I'm not a genius or anything, but I got a little bit of knowledge, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, we're just not showing a lot.
Right.
We're not showing a lot of blitz packages. The second half, we come out and actually absolutely dominate the football game, and you know, there was some relief there with respect to the defense. I think the defense did a good job.
You know, everybody's before some linebacker departures and injuries, I think the biggest concern was secondary.
Yeah.
But you know, Shawn, the secondary, they're just young. They're still 4- and 5-star athletes back there.
Really talented.
You know, do you think that Coach Saban has went through the entire spring and summer thinking, oh, we're weak or inexperienced? I promise you, those kids have been coached up. The thing about the DBs that I loved was the length, how rangy they were, tall, physical guys. You know what, here again, going back to the offense side, I think putting points on the board early and them chasing us allowed us to be a little bit more vanilla defensively.
Yeah. I don't think it's what I was telling some friends of mine. Why do we need to show everything right now? There's not a point in that. I believe that our defense is athletic enough. Yes, they're young, but they've been coached. They've been coached really well. And so I think Saban and of course the defensive coordinator wanted to see what these guys were made of early.
I agree with that. And you know what, here again, these guys were going to get better every single football game we play.
That's right.
You know what? To me, if I'm trying to attack our defense right now, I'm possibly trying to run it right at us, and that's, you know, for a decade now, teams haven't had success that, but our weakness is linebacker play.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be secondary.
Yeah.
Do I think we're going to make mistakes in the secondary? Of course I do, because you're dealing with the inexperience.
Yeah, and some of the mistakes aren't necessarily physical mistakes. You know, I was reading an article today about just the communication. You know, Mac Wilson's the quarterback of the defense, and he's having, when the offense is making changes, he's having to make changes. And sometimes he's not, he even admitted, you know, I wasn't really sure what to get into.
Right.
And he's got to actually make a call to Deontay Thompson, who is now trying to make a call for the DBs. So some of that's not physical mistakes.
That's right.
It's
right.
mental mistakes, and on a big stage, you know, and this is their first time doing that.
You know, a couple of their big plays came off of obviously mental mistakes, the guys being wide open or whatever. You know, the drive that they scored first was extended by a immature penalty in the backfield or whatever. But game reps are going to help the mental mistakes and seeing it and being able to play a little faster.
And that's what, you know, Saban made the comment. Coach Saban said, you know, if you see somebody that's wide open, we made a mistake because we do not have a defensive coverage where someone is unguarded.
That's right. That's right.
And that, I mean, that's just, you know, that's part of that fast game where these young kids, Mac Wilson's first time being the play caller for the defense. Deontay Thompson's getting that was his fourth start.
Speaking of, he's pretty good.
Yeah, really good.
He's really good.
Really good, by the way.
Yeah.
And look, who was the guy? We lost the guy at the end last year that was playing safety.
Hoodie?
Yeah, we lose him, who's a senior. Deontay steps in and does maybe even a better job, does a phenomenal job, and he just follows that up this year. Now he's a signal caller for the DBs.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff going on. You know, they're young guys that are out there trying to play fast. The one thing I do like, Mac Wilson said, if we're going to make a mistake, we all need to make the same mistake. And, you know, it makes a lot of sense. Right. At least they're on the same page.
That's right. You know, the thing is, I think here again, a good offense is going to allow us to be more patient with the defense. And
going to allow us to breathe a little bit. Some of those younger guys, I bet you some of those younger guys were still a little nervous, even though, you know, they're experienced athletes. They were a little nervous.
And here again, offensively, you know, jumping up, that makes the opponent's offense one-dimensional possibly, which scales things down for your defense.
So there's a lot of things that factor in, and we're gonna take another break real quick. We're gonna come back and talk a little bit more about the defense, and then get into next week's game. But we're gonna take another break right here from Bob English at State Farm. Hold your seats. We'll be right back with Tide Talk.
State Farm agent Bob English is here to help protect all the moving parts of your life with auto, home, life, and financial services. Bob English and his team make it simple to bring together what matters to you. Get to a better state. Call Bob today.
All right, guys, welcome back to Tide Talk. Roy, we were just talking about the defense and talking about young guys and as DBs and how our offensive play kind of helps the defensive play. The whole offseason, there were a lot of conversation about how our defensive front, you know, that front seven was probably going to help out the younger guys. You know, you made the comment earlier, if you were an offensive coach, you'd run the ball at us. I don't know about you, and give me your opinion, but I felt like our DBs did just as well, maybe even better than our front seven.
Shawn, I don't think we were lacking athleticism back there on the back end of the defense. Here again, any success they had offensively, throwing the ball, was a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
You know, it 9 times out of 10 the other night, we had them covered. You know what? Defensive back-wise, you got to have short memory. At some point, they're going to get beat.
Sure.
They're going to probably get beat this coming week at some point. But you know what, man, I was really impressed with them. Like I said, their length and how rangy they were. We just have to have them mature.
What I liked about it, Roy, was just the fact that they did not play, in my opinion, like young athletes, inexperienced. They played fearless. I mean, guys coming up, laying the wood to people. I mean, without fear. They were covering guys without fear. And you know it. You're a coach. I used to coach. When you're running man coverage on a guy that knows where he's going and probably runs a 4.440, 4.340, man, you're out there on an island. That's difficult.
Yeah, but you know, Shawn, as you're talking, I'm thinking about this. Times have changed. Number one, there's more early enrollees. They're coming in during December.
Yeah,
we're still recruiting 4- and 5-star athletes, and hate to get back to the offense, but when you're going all through spring and all through summer and the voluntary work during the summer, those guys are covering against Tua and Jalen and that receiving core that we have.
That's a good point.
Who better as a young defensive back to sit there and try to man up on during June or July?
Yeah, that brings up a very good point. I mean, our guys, even if they're getting beat by our receivers, our ones, they should be learning some lessons. They should be learning some things, and so that brings up that's a very good point. You know, man, it's funny. We keep saying, "Hate to go back to the offense." How many times in the past 20 years have you said that about Alabama football? That's kind of crazy to talk about, because every year it's, you know, we got the best defense in the country.
In the past, man, I remember wanting to punt it on 2nd or 3rd down and play defense.
That's right. And you know what? We laugh about that, but I mean, I can remember saying, you know what? It's okay. The defense will score.
That's right.
The defense will score. Well, it is definitely going to be an exciting offensive year, and I agree, Roy, the defense with every game is going to get better and better and better. So let's talk a little bit about our next opponent. We play our first home game this weekend, 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central at Bryant-Denny Stadium against, maybe not the most daunting opponent, Arkansas State, but they got some pretty good players.
You know what? They've got a fifth-year senior quarterback named Justice Hanson that, he threw for, I want to say, 426 yards, 5 touchdowns. Had a big day. And the thing is, he obviously has weapons because I want to say he completed passes to possibly 9 different receivers.
That makes any task for a defense
correct.
difficult.
So, they may, here again, going back to those young guys, they're obviously going to throw it around, show multiple formations. I think that we'll have some more of those mental breakdowns defensively in the second. Right. But you know what, though? Yes, it's a lesser opponent, but I still think it's a game in which our team is allowed to grow. Yeah. And I hope that the mistakes that we make full speed, and we get better going into game 3.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. We talked about it last show about Nick Saban's job and what he does to get our guys prepared, not just physically, but mentally for every single game. And this game is probably more difficult to get those guys to understand, hey, you're probably favored by 40 or more points, but you cannot allow that to affect your week of preparation.
I don't know if it was on training days or an article I read where, he questioned the team on what is your commitment level. And he talked about what is your commitment, on the field, off the field, meal preparation, your lifts or whatever. And I think this falls right into lines with it. What is your commitment on against a lesser opponent?
Right.
Are you going to still play like your hair's on fire?
Yeah.
Or, and I think that's an ability to, as an athlete, to kind of self-check yourself and see, okay, am I maturing? Can I get up for this team the same way I got up for Louisville?
And he actually, it was training days. He actually said that to them. You got to look in the mirror. You have to say, what is it that I can do to get myself better? Am I giving everything that I can give in all aspects?
That's right.
Not just the field of play, but every aspect. And your commitment to not being stagnant and trying to get better. So he does a fantastic job. Coach Saban does a fantastic job with getting these guys to buy in to the process. We talked about the process, getting them to buy in. And on these games, which I believe has to be the most difficult.
Now, here, talking about Coach Saban, obviously we know that we're blessed to have one of the top, if not the top, college football coach of all time.
Who just got a contract extension,
That's
by
right.
the way.
That's right. When he called me earlier, asked me, how many reps should Mac Jones get, I asked to hold $1.
Right.
But anyway, seriously, but you're talking about an individual that recruits nothing but 4 and 5 stars, gets them on campus, and you know what? With those 4 and 5 stars comes a lot of pride, comes a lot of egos. And for those same kids were told a bunch of places that they could start and be the man, and he's trying to get them to buy in. Look at Reuben Foster, who sat for a couple of years. Heck, we have Ben Davis right now, who was
5-star recruit.
Yes, and hadn't seen the whole field a whole lot.
Even on special teams.
That's right. So, his job and his ability to get the players to buy in and respect the program, says a lot for what he's able to do as a coach.
Well, the contract extension, which was crazy. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say it was worth $84 million. But it supports what you're saying. I mean, we're getting year after year, we're in the top 3 in recruiting. But not only are we in the top 3, because I'll be the first to tell you, just because you got a 5-star label, Ben Davis, doesn't mean that you're going to come to Alabama and be a 5-star football player.
That's right.
I mean, he's taking these guys and he's for the most part, molding every one of them into young men.
That's right.
And preparing them for whatever comes after football as well. I mean, a lot of guys talk about him being like a father figure, and a lot of folks don't see that. A lot of folks see just him being the hard nose and fussing at you on the side, you know. But he's preparing these kids for life after football.
That's right. Who was it back in the day, Shawn? Was it Blake Sims, who initially didn't get a whole lot of playing time, and his dad came out and said, hey, listen, he don't have to ever play a snap.
Yeah, I think it was Blake Sims.
Yeah, he is being guided in the right direction. Coach Saban's taking care of my child and growing him into a young man. And look, you're going to have mistakes, and you're dealing with teenage kids who are going to make bad decisions. But somebody like, you know, I hate to knock Ben Davis, but, you know, I admire Ben Davis too for, you know, he's been in the program for 3 years now, sticking with it. And who's to say at some point this season the light don't come on? And you know what, at this point it's an extra.
Well, hey, I mean, Reuben Foster was a special teams guy. It was supposed to be, you know, this standout linebacker. Ended up being, but if you think about it, only for a couple of years. I mean, it's not like he started and played 4 years of football at Alabama.
That's right.
You know, so there's still some opportunity for Ben Davis, and I'm the same way. I believe that if he stays with it, he's at some point he's going to get a chance.
That's
because,
right.
I mean, he's a if you've ever seen him physically, he's an absolute freak.
And you know what? If he doesn't, hopefully he's been taught in the way to be a good husband, a good father, and gets an education.
That's right. Well, Coach Dixon, man, it was a great time tonight. I appreciate you coming on the show. Man,
no problem,
thanks a bunch. Maybe we can make it out to Pasadena again
I
this year,
hope
because
so.
the national championship game, by the way, is out in Pasadena again.
We'll head that way.
But Tide fans, it was a great time tonight. We're going to roll with the Tide on Saturday at 3:30 against Arkansas State, and then we'll be back right here again next week. So hold your seats, root for the Tide, and we'll see you next week on Tide Talk.